Welcome to Grave Endeavors, the show where I travel across the country to visit different graveyards and cemeteries to find some of the most unique and interesting gravestones and head markers and learn about the people buried beneath them. Today, I'm at the Haughton Cemetery in Toledo, Ohio. You probably haven't heard of this one. In fact, thousands of people pass by it daily, and they pay it no mind. And that's because of its weird location. Well, you see, the cemetery itself is quite old, and the city of Toledo developed all around it. It is, after all, believe it or not, the smallest cemetery in Toledo. I pass by this cemetery often. I've stood next to it many times in my life. Never once have I entered, until now. Every time I would pass by on my way to one place or another, I would find my attention drawn to the Haughton Cemetery. Once I noticed it was there. I would try to plan or schedule a visit in my head and lose the thought in the noise of the day. You see, it's located in the middle of a busy main road in Toledo. It's surrounded by many businesses and is a quiet respite in the middle of all the hustle and bustle of the city. It sits right next to a gas station. You can actually observe this cemetery while pumping gas. You can see the wall and the fencing that are separating this land from the gas station itself. It's almost like a barrier to another place in time. There's a McDonald's drive-thru over here, a brewery, a pizza place. You can see Home Depot from here. There's lots of little shops across the street. Really, it's a plot of land from a different time in the city. Everything seemed to spring up around it, while it got left behind, forgotten. But I wouldn't say it's too forgotten. It is well taken care of. It's kept up. I see people in here cutting grass from time to time. It would seem the city hasn't forgotten about it. Right outside of the entrance of Hofton Cemetery is the intersection of Central Avenue and C.A.P.E.R Road. These are two main roads here in Toledo, and they're quite busy. The Department of Traffic Engineering shows that over 48,000 people pass through this intersection on an average weekday. That's a lot of people passing by. How many even pay any mind to this little cemetery? How many even notice that it exists at all? While the cemetery currently sits as part of Toledo, Ohio, it was originally part of Washington Township. It was annexed by the city of Toledo in July of 1963. Originally, the cemetery held its name over the main gate, but when a new fence was put up, the sign and the name was not. A truly fascinating fact about the Haughton Cemetery is that it was originally a private burial ground used by the 6 Hofton brothers: Lyman, Stephen, Marvin, Cyrus, John, and William. The first 4 of them came from Monroe County, New York during the winter of 1833 to 1834. A few years later, the other brothers would move here. And originally, this was known as Hofton Street. It is now known as Central Avenue. And that's an amazing fact. I've lived in Toledo most of my life, and I've never known this to be anything other than Central Avenue. And while the cemetery is currently located on Central Avenue, previously known as Hofton Street, if you go a little further down Central Avenue, there's actually a Hofton Drive, a street that I turn down quite often. That's my favorite bookstore right there. Stephen Hofton was one of the earliest physicians in this part of Ohio. He eventually moved his family to Fulton, Ohio, where he farmed and practiced medicine. He died in Wauseon, Ohio on May 26, 1887, and his body was returned here. There are less than 100 headstones and monuments here. Many are no longer legible or broken. The family themselves were very active in all things in this area. During the Civil War, several family members were members of the Company K of the 25th OVI. Nathaniel, the son of Lyman, would go on to become a brigadier general. He returned to Toledo to enter the foundry and machine business. Today, that business is known as the Haughton Elevator Company, which is a division of the Toledo Scale Corporation.
Now, the Hofton Elevator Company was founded in 1867 and closed in 1979 when it was acquired by Schindler. It was then known as the Schindler-Hofton Elevator Corporation. President of the company would change in 1984. It would change again in 1986, and then once more in 1987 when David Smith was appointed the president and chief executive officer of the Schindler Elevator Corporation, removing Hofton from the company name in 1989. The Schindler Elevator Corporation is still in operation today, and many of its modern elevators are inspired by the Hofton designs. The company was first located on South Huron Street until 1950, and then another factory was constructed off the Anthony Wayne Trail across from the Toledo Zoo. The southern part of the factory was demolished, and that was when the Toledo Zoo expanded across the street. When you visit the Toledo Zoo, where the polar bears are now, is where the Hofton's president's office was located. In 2008, the northern part of the factory was demolished. As for the Toledo Scale Company, it was bought in 1968 by the Reliance Electric Company and moved to Columbus. In 1989, Mettler bought the company from Reliance Electric and renamed it Mettler Toledo. As of today, in 2024, the company is still in operation.
So Nathaniel was pretty successful in life, but Nathaniel isn't even buried here. In fact, he's buried in the cemetery I featured in the very first episode of Grave Endeavors. And instead of just telling you, why don't I show you?
Hello, Gary.
C.A.S.P.E.R, I need a portal open to these coordinates now.
Portal coming your way.
Thanks, C.A.S.P.E.R.
No problem, beautiful.
Let's go. Thanks, C.A.S.P.E.R. Close the portal. So Nathaniel is buried here, along with other members of the Haughton family, in the historic Woodlawn Cemetery, also in Toledo, Ohio.
Hello, Gary.
C.A.S.P.E.R, open up the portal back to Haughton Cemetery.
No can do, Chief. The Bacon's core has been overloaded. We need about 5.5 hours to recharge. You're gonna have to hoof it.
Well, that figures. I guess I'm walking back. Stupid portal. Always gotta recharge. Also next to the cemetery is what was once known as Westgate Chapel. The church began as a community Sunday school in 1861. In 1909, the church itself was erected, and the current building that stands there was dedicated in November of 1966 and is currently the Guardian Alarm Company. A woman known as Cora Conrad, previously known as Cora Vischer, recalls how pupils liked to wander into the cemetery on warm spring days and eat their lunch. Many of the tombstones here were related to the Hoftons by either marriage or they were close friends of the Hoftons and early settlers of the Hofton neighborhood.
In 2012, members of the Greater Toledo Civil War Roundtable held a service here to honor those who fought for the Union during the Civil War. They placed Grand Army of the Republic markers at 8 graves here, where there previously were no markers that signified their service. Some of them outlasted the war, while others, like Henry Brown of the 130th Ohio Volunteer Infantry, lost their lives during the conflict. Mr. Brown would never come home to see his wife and unborn child. It was students of Navarre Elementary and their teacher that raised about $400 to pay for the markers. Kathy Dowd attended the event dressed as a Civil War widow in Civil War-era mourning attire that she made herself in her Toledo apparel reproduction business. Students placed American flags on each grave, taps was played, and a 21-gun salute was fired.
That's really it for Haughton Cemetery, this small little piece of forgotten land in the middle of the hustle and bustle of the city life here in Toledo. Well, I guess you can say, besides the city keeping up with it, it isn't truly forgotten, because I think about this place often, every time I pass by. And now that I've actually finally stopped here, I'll continue thinking about it. I'm Scary Gary, and this has been Grave Endeavors at the Haughton Cemetery in Toledo, Ohio. Let's go see what else we can dig up. As you can see, it's pretty busy. Awesome. And cut. These were members of the 25th. During the Civil War, several family members were members of the company C.A.S.P.E.R. Let's go. Plenty of cars coming through the gate. Finish filming this with this. Let's wait for these cars to pass my shot. So Nathaniel is buried here